Hi, friends. It's Janine Richards from Q101. Welcome to The Tour Life. Grab your all-access pass and join me behind the scenes of the music industry. Together, we'll discover how to live happier and healthier lives doing what we love. Today's guest is a touring musician from Chicago that has lived a life of adventure guided by his passion for music. He's a songwriter and multi-instrumentalist who has not just made waves with his own band, Company of Thieves, but has also worked with legends like Daryl Hall of Hall & Oates, Juliette Lewis, Dead Sarah, and Walk the Moon. He's now gearing up to hit the road again with AWOLNATION this summer, along with 311 and Neon Trees. In this episode, we revisit his time touring with Beck as his guitarist, with Cage the Elephant, and with one of my favorite bands, Spoon, on the Night Running Tour in 2019, where we met for the first time in person during his hometown show at Northerly Island. He has also collaborated on various projects, including Shadow Dweller by Alice Ocean and After Hours by Marcus Adam. Today's conversation promises deep insights into his musical and self-development journey, as well as some insider tips for aspiring touring musicians. Here is my conversation with one of the coolest guys around, Marc Walloch. Hey, Marc, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, how are you? You've been super busy. I saw you last time. I didn't get to see you in Indianapolis, but I saw you in Chicago.
Yeah. It's so weird. Like a whole summer just went by. I just got home like 2 weeks ago, and yeah, like all this life has happened, and I'm like, I'm thinking summer's coming, and I'm like really excited for summer, and people are like, dude, it's almost October. Like, so yeah, I'm glad to be home.
Tell me how you got into music and how you got to where you are now. I want to hear about that.
Yeah. When I was really, really young, I don't know why, but I loved Rafi as he was like the children's folk singer, like for children's songs, like when I was like 3 years old. And then I like got into like the Beach Boys because they were on an episode of Sesame Street, and they did Kokomo or something, and I pulled out all my dad's cassettes, and the Beach Boys and all like these pop melodies like were really infectious to me. And being around my house, like my dad had Motown all the time, and that was a huge influence. Music was kind of always around when I was really young, but I never really like got into it consciously on my own until like maybe like the third or fourth grade, which was like 95, 96. And that's when I discovered like, you know, the Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana and like the whole like 90s alternative rock scene. And that made me really want to like be a part of it somehow. Like it was just such this intense energy and such a huge outlet for emotion and passion. And I just wanted to pour it into playing guitar. So I got a guitar when I was young and just started playing and learning, and then wanted to be in bands. And like most people, just played in a bunch of high school bands and had the dream of touring and playing shows around the world. And then, yeah, I guess that slowly started to happen when I was like in my late teens with my band Company of Thieves. And that kind of got me in the music industry at like a professional level, which has been great because even, you know, it wasn't like a huge band or anything, but it was a massive part of my life and seemed to touch people enough where it has led me to opportunities every day today. Like I feel like everything that I've done or accomplished stems from like all the work I put in when I was younger in my own project. So I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, and now I've just been playing and writing, and here I am. It's really hard making a brief version of my whole life like that. So I hope that made sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Or else I'd be like here for like 2 hours just answering that question.
No, for sure. Absolutely. So what are like the major milestones that happened between Company of Thieves and now?
I think it's really important to like experience success and failures back to back and back and forth. People who only have success aren't learning from certain failures to like figure out how to rework things or grow. And I feel like people who are constantly just failing, like aren't experiencing the success to help motivate your confidence and keep going. And I think one of the biggest things was the way that band ended and broke up was so intense. And it just like put me through this like spiritual awakening of just like surrendering to anything that was happening, whether it be good or bad. And at that time, it was just really bad, and there's all these unknowns. And I think I just started to look at life differently, like being grateful for all the little things around me that maybe I wasn't noticing when I was having tunnel vision of like that band being this huge thing, and you have all these pictures in your head of what your dream is, and you idealize it, and you get caught up in that vision instead of just surrendering to like the way that life is taking you, and having gratitude with that. And once I did that, I feel like that was the biggest thing I learned. That was a big milestone, because then it started opening up a bunch of doors for me, even in my personal life, like attracting good friends that I liked, and nurturing other primal needs that weren't just in the tunnel vision of being a successful musician, and I think that strengthened me in many different ways, and it just helped create more, work opportunities, and attracted me to people to get gigs and things like that. And I just, whenever I'm having like a weird time that's uncertain, or I don't know what's next, I try to like think back to that milestone when my band broke up and I was in that weird foggy haze, and just trust that you're on some track and you'll fall in sync again, as long as you have some kind of like belief and faith. And when you step out your door, you're approaching people with love, and you have a bright light with you. You're not just like mopey or like complaining about your life, because we're in a first world country and our problems aren't that big.
Yeah, just kind of being able to let go and enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
Right? Just grow from it.
Yeah.
I love that you're saying that. I can sense that you definitely have a growth mindset. I know with all your bands, you've gone on tour, right? You've recorded, you've done everything, I think, right? And so how does that, I mean, maybe not gone on Broadway, but but how has that affected you as a person? Because you're at a really formative age when you're in high school, right? And then you're becoming a young adult, and it's really hard to figure things out if, you're just doing the normal college thing and then just getting your job and whatever. How was that growing up for you with music?
How was that growing up for not doing the normal thing?
Yeah, not doing the normal thing. How did you manage? Did you have to grow up faster? Did you have to do anything that you think was different?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because all I know is me and what happened in my life. So I don't really have anything to compare it to say if it was harder or easier. When I was younger, I did like always imagine myself being on some path that wasn't normal. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just didn't feel like it resonated with me. So I think when I made the decision to drop out of school, I think that was where it really felt like things were clicking, like I was really getting on. It opened up a wider path to like get to where I really wanted to go and grow. But yeah, I think it's weird. When I first started touring, when I was like in my early 20s, you're just sitting in a van for 12 hours sometimes with your thoughts. And we didn't have, this is like 2008, 2009, 2010. So there were like the era of like social media wasn't as big on your phone. So we would just listen to music and think in long van rides for years. And I would always imagine like, wow, some of my friends are just like still in school, or they just graduated college and now they're trying to find a job, and like, which is one way of learning and growing, but I don't know that way. So all I know is like, I was wanting them to like experience what I was experiencing. Like, oh wow, we've lived in this country for 20 years, but no one, like a lot of us haven't traveled outside of our hometown. And there's so many beautiful things in different cultures and different regions in this country that I just felt really fortunate to be exposed to. And I kind of wanted other people to experience that on some level, but there's a loneliness to it too, because you're just sitting in a van for hours every day, and life is happening and time is moving forward, and you get home and like it feels like it's been a week, but everyone lived like 4 months and things have happened, and you're kind of out of touch with a lot of your friendships and relationships. And I guess that is hard. Maybe that's more difficult, but like anything, it also comes with all these like perks and pluses. Like, I don't know. I've experienced things that most people don't when you're just on one path at home, like, or at school for 4 years, or, I don't know. I hope that answered that.
Yeah. It's definitely got to be different. And you mentioned that earlier to me that the summer felt like it was just starting, but it's almost over.
Yeah.
So does that happen to you a lot?
Yeah, time is really strange. It like goes by fast and long at the same time. And like the beginning of the summer seems like 2 weeks ago, but it also seems like 4 months ago. It doesn't make any sense. But it is strange because I feel like you come home to a familiar place like your house, and it just seems like, oh, you pick up where you left off. Like, but that was like a whole season ago, and I don't really realize that. And in my recent years, it's made me want to be like, I'm extra motivated to like stay busy because all this time passes and you have to kind of catch up in a way with keeping up with relationships that are important with you and keeping up with other goals and plans that you're not able to focus on while you're on the road. So it's like really important to get home, take a few days to like rejuvenate yourself, and then get on like something new, get on a new trip, and make sure that you don't like time keep passing you by.
Have you had that experience where like you didn't get right back to work, and then
oh yeah,
what happened?
When I was younger, like in the Company of Thieves years, like 2009, 2010, 11, 12, like those years I would come home and like I was completely lost because I was still living in Chicago. I was much younger, and I'd go to bed at like 5 or 6 in the morning. Like, I don't know what I was doing. I think I was like playing guitar all night, or just like drinking a lot and trying to adjust coming home and going to bed really late and then waking up super late. And it just seemed like this depression that I didn't even realize I was in until like later. I was like, oh wow, that's like very exhausting, depressing lifestyle. But now I feel like maybe just being in like the sunshine of California, like it makes you want to feel alive and it helps you wake you up. So I want to like, I don't know, stay on top of physical health that helps my mental and emotional health and all these other things that just make me want to like win, like, and just like with this competition with yourself, just keep getting better. And when you stay on that path, it just seems like doors keep opening for you, even if it takes a little while, How
did it feel? How did you know that that's what was happening, that you needed to do something different, you needed to make a change?
It was that same milestone that we talked about earlier, like, when my first band, like my first big band, Company of Thieves, when it broke up, it just left me in such a weird, foggy haze. And it was the first time in my life where I dealt with a problem differently, where like this switch flipped, and I was like, I want to ride my bike. I want to like get in better shape. I want to write music. I want to do other things musically than just play in a band. Because I knew that I had to do that, or else I would just get lost and like time would go by and who knows where I would end up, So like, and then just moving out here with no real plan, that like really wakes you up. Whenever you're like feeling stagnant, I always try to like tell my friends this, because I tell myself this, that if you create some kind of motion, not necessarily moving, but like doing something different or starting something new, or like changing up your routine, or moving to a different place with no plan, I feel like it just creates waves, and it's not going to be the answer to any problems, but it might create some kind of light on a different path that you weren't focused on before.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I've listened to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of books, and a lot of them talk about getting unstuck and how you get unstuck. And so yeah, making some changes, because I feel like at that point when you're lost in depression, you feel so out of control.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a good way to feel like you're doing something and something's in your control.
Yeah, definitely.
Throughout that whole time when you were having all these issues with your band, and you kind of knew it was time for a new phase and you were trying to do something new, did you get any good advice from anyone that helped you?
I feel like saying no sounds like, I mean, the answer is no, but not in the sense like, oh, no one helped me. Like, I don't mean that. I guess like, I wish I had a friend, like a close friend, that was like a few steps farther than where I'm at, to like help guide me or help give me advice. But I never really had anyone like that. It's always been like peers, or people that were like a few steps behind. It's so I don't know if it's advice that's helped me, but I think I've like always been very observant of like other people and where they are and how they got there, whether that be a good or bad, and just trying to avoid the bad ones. Like, oh, this person, their life doesn't look like they're happy, so that doesn't resonate with me. So what were the steps that I think that they took to get there that I should avoid and look out for as I get older? And the same thing for someone who's like, oh, this person looks like they have their shit together and they're really happy. And, what were the steps along the way that it seemed to like evolve to that? So I think I may not have advice, but I think just being observant and watching people and how they transform has been like a big thing for me.
And I think that really speaks to the importance of staying in contact with people. And
Totally.
because I feel like being alone can be very easy, and then it's hard to see everything else that's happening. And it's hard to learn from anything if you're just in your shell, becoming a recluse.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. So after that, what do you love about LA? And like, could you tell me about kind of how you are even able to keep a relationship, how you're able to have a dog, just like all that stuff? It's so sweet.
I really love it. It's not necessarily LA that I love. I do love the West though, like Pacific Northwest. I love like New Mexico, and I'm not really a desert guy, but I do like taking trips and road trips like through the desert. There's something really like therapeutic and calming about that. But I've always just been drawn to California in general, like as a state, and like just being that close to the ocean and the weather and the sunshine and the mountains and all of that. It's just these like primal things that like wake me up. I don't know, like when I was younger and still living in Chicago and I'd be touring in LA or making records in LA, like I'd always feel different. It was like, oh wow, bad days aren't that bad because there's things that are more important that I'm focusing on, like the sun. I know that sounds lame, but it's so true. And just things like that. I'd physically feel more alive, like being out here. So I think it was just a matter of time to move here. And as far as how do I have a relationship and a dog, like I think it's just been a really long process of trying things like in slow steps. I like to take things in baby steps. I don't like to like jump into too many crazy new things and find yourself in a hole. But I think having a partner that is supportive and understanding is really important. And it's also important for you to understand how difficult it is for someone else on the other side to be with someone like you who is asking for all this space away from them. But it's just like it's an ongoing process of just like learning and trying to make it work. And my girlfriend, she'll fly out a lot of times on tour to like make sure that we're not away for like too many weeks at a time. And that's always really helpful for both of us. And I don't know, I think everyone's different. I think it's just, I used to think that I couldn't take any steps forward until everything in my life was perfect. And that's so silly. But I think I was talking to a friend the other day who was relating to that and said the same thing. I'm like, why do we all think that we're going to like reach some level of success and happiness and it's just going to be that forever? Like, cause even when you get there, it's going to drop at some point. So what does that mean? Like, should we not move forward with getting a pet or having a child or having a relationship or whatever it is? I feel like you just do it and balance yourself and try to make it work if it's important to you.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that we all have. We want everything to be perfect, and nothing's ever going to be perfect. So all it does is it just becomes a block and you're not able to ever start anything.
Totally. And you get glimpses of that. Like, wow, everything's clicking. This is great. But even when you get there, it's not going to be that forever. So it's just silly to be holding out for that.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a lesson to learn. And you don't see it, right? Because you're almost, just with relationships and stuff, it's like you're afraid to let the other person down because maybe you're not ready. But I feel like it's really just, it's like a you thing. And you just need to let it go.
For sure.
So you just got off tour.
Mm-hmm.
How did it go? Where did you guys go? You did it like all across the country, but you didn't leave the US for this one, right? It was just a US tour?
No, yeah. Because Beck's pretty late in his record cycle. Like the last record that came out, I'm burping because I had LaCroix. I hope we get a sponsorship for LaCroix. He had his record Colors come out a few years back. So I think this was just like a last tour until like a new album comes out. So we didn't leave the country. It was just the US. It was about 2 months. And then he's about to release his new album, I think in November. So there'll be some touring next year. Hopefully I'm still on board. I'd love to keep doing it. But yeah, it was just a US tour and playing with some other bands at home here and there, like small shows around town that just keeps you busy and keeps your chops up. And just working on commercial music and writing songs with other people and producing other people, and really want to carve some space for like my own stuff again, because I haven't done that in way too long. So I'm just trying to find time and space to devote some time to explore a little bit and try some new stuff.
That's exciting. You guys did all amphitheaters, right?
Yeah.
Tell me how that is, because when I went to like the 2 venues, I don't know, it's different. And you guys are like straight on the buses, and then you're showering like in trailers, stuff like that, right? Explain an amphitheater tour to me, please.
Well, the more I keep doing this, I realize that like at every level, every band has their thing that they like or their way of touring. And touring with Beck has been great because he's been doing this for so long that he likes to sustain what he's doing. And the only way to do that this many years is to make sure that it's really comfortable. And we all get to benefit from that. And so it's a little bit different. Like when I was touring with AWOLNATION, we'd be playing like the same size places sometimes. And we had a different schedule where we would like, you'd take a shower in the dressing room after you play it and either go out around town before your bus call, which is like 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. And sleep on the bus while it's driving. Or you just go on the bus and go to sleep if you want, or watch a movie or whatever. But that was nice because you were never in transit while you were awake. It was just while you were sleeping. So you'd wake up and have a full day in like the next city. But amphitheater tours are outside of cities. So I found that to be pretty miserable sometimes because you'd wake up and you'd be like an hour away from the actual city and you're in the middle of nowhere and you're like, what do I do all day? How do I feel like I'm not going to become a loser and just like sit around all day? So I used to set up like a mobile recording rig and work on other music and commercial music and, just for some extra side cash and just keep my mind busy. With Beck though, we would go to hotels all the time. So after an amphitheater show, we would have a bus drive us maybe like 40 minutes to an hour, sometimes a few hours, and get to a nice hotel where we could sleep on a nice bed because sometimes it's really hard to fall asleep on a bus. So that was nice, but it has its perks. But then a lot of the days you'd be driving to the show instead of having a full day of just like living life, which is fine. If it's just like 2 hours, it's like have some coffee on the bus and hang out and read a book or do something. But yeah, it's very smooth. Like all the crews are great. Like you don't really have to worry about much. We would show up like, maybe 2 hours before the show time. So there wasn't a lot of like, waiting around like a lot of us used to do, like in bands. Like you'd load in at like 1 and you would just be at this venue all day standing around. And I kind of like my normal life to like roll right into a show because it just seems more exciting. But yeah, I don't know. Amphitheater tours, they're great. It feels like a lot of energy because it could fit so many people, but it doesn't feel like an arena or a stadium where it's like not intimate. It does have it feels like a big theater in a way. So you're still getting some like close up and personal like connections with people, which is nice, while seeing like a sea of people like in the back. So I love it.
That show in particular was so wild with Cage the Elephant. So you, before we move on to the next thing, I just wanted to ask you, so what happened with the broken femur? Didn't one of the guys break his leg?
Oh, yeah. So they had so many, they're such a wild band. I love them. Nick, their guitar player, they had a European tour right before this tour, and he like did this huge jump off of a catwalk off stage and just landed all messed up, and his leg got like super messed up and he had to have like surgery and get rushed home, and they canceled the European tour. So he's like sitting down the whole show, and he's a killer player and he usually runs around the stage a lot. And then their drummer had to leave for a few shows because of a family emergency, and their drum tech just filled in last minute. So they have like all these things like falling apart around them, but like they still have such a strong show and nothing holds them back. So it's really inspiring to see.
It is. That's so wild. So how does that, every time you play with different bands and stuff, how has that affected you? Because it leaves an impression, and does it give you more confidence to be a little bit more different?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so interesting, like how people react to songs in a live setting versus like showing someone a song in your car, and when I've watched a huge amount of people react so powerfully to just like a lyric or a song or a rhythm or some kind of vibe, it always just makes you want to be like, oh, I really want to do something like that. Like, that's cool. I should like think about that and put it in my back pocket. So I think like every tour with every band, there's something like that, or some like, oh, I keep that in mind. I shouldn't do that. like there's always things that you could pick up on. It's like I don't know, it's like a big lesson to like just observe and try to bring that into like what you're doing. And depending on what bands you're playing with, like I've been fortunate enough to like play with so many bands that I actually really love and get to see up close and personal, like how they are and what they do. And like Spoon and Cage Elephant are like big bands that I just really love so much. And it's been a blast, like seeing their set every single night and seeing how they work.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like wellness based or just even just living life on the road, is there any lessons that you've learned specifically just from the past few tours that you've been on?
Yeah, I think as hard as it is, I think it's really good to try to put effort into like moving physically around, because it's so easy to like fall into like having drinks every night and it's a show. So it just like helps you get in the mood and it's fun and it's a party atmosphere, but you don't realize, oh my God, I just got drunk like 40 days in a row. Like that would never happen in any other scenario. And just that whole lifestyle of like eating at weird times and sleeping at weird times. Like I think it's so important to try to make yourself go out and take walks or take a run or use a fitness center in a hotel or pools and just move. Cause it's just, you start to get into this really slow, tired depression, like physically, and it's really tough to find time to do anything other than just catch up on sleep. So I think that's been something that's helped me a lot, as well as same thing mentally, like work on other music outside of what you're doing every single night. So you're not just feeling like you're a robot doing the same show. And I like to keep up with playing guitar or writing some songs or working on like commercial music or finishing up a song I was producing at home, maybe, before I left for tour, or just things like that. I think all of that can really help just maintain a healthier mental, emotional, and physical existence on the road.
Yeah, I was talking to Jim at the Indianapolis show, and he mentioned how he started doing Muay Thai pretty recently.
That's awesome. I had no idea.
So amazing.
Yeah.
Are you into any sports or anything like that?
Yeah, my sport growing up was hockey. I was really big into hockey, and I wanted to I've always picked the hardest career path. Like before I wanted to be like a professional musician, I wanted to be like in the NHL. So my poor parents were just like, can you just go to college and get a job and don't scare us? So yeah, when I was like 4, I started playing hockey and I got into travel hockey, and that was my whole life. Like I could barely do schoolwork. I was traveling all the time for tournaments. So it was kind of like a precursor to like my life when I got older touring. So I liked being in transit and listening to music. Like I would just be in my dad's van being taken to like a tournament in like Canada or Michigan, and I would just listen to like my Discman and like put on my Nirvana records or like listen to Q101 or just get lost in the music while I was playing hockey. And I think that turned into like this transformation eventually. But yeah, so yeah, and I still play hockey. Actually, I do this roller hockey pickup league outside in Burbank out here, and it's so fun. It's like every Sunday. It's the best workout, and I love skating and I love hockey. So it's just, I don't know, it's a good time.
That's so cool. What is it that you love so much about hockey? Like what made you say like, this is my sport, I'm going to travel for it? I
don't think like it was anything big. When I was like 3 or something, and my brother, he's 4 years older than me, so our parents wanted to take us ice skating. And we went when we were really young, like I was like 3 or 4. And I think I saw like a hockey game happening at the rink, one of the rinks where we went to go just ice skate. And I think I was just mesmerized about the game and the fast movement. And my uncle was a hockey player, so that was kind of like another influence that helped me get more into it. And then, I don't know, it just became my life. I like fast thinking. I like when you're forced to think really fast. Like baseball is an incredible game too, and I love baseball, but it's like so different. You have like so much time to strategize and like think about plays, and like there's so many breaks in between each play. Whereas like hockey is just nonstop movement, and like you have to think fast. You have to know how to skate. There's so many different formations and strategies that like help score in a different situation. It's just different than any other sport, and it's faster than any other sport. So I love that. I love the speed.
Do you think that helped you with the last minute requests from Beck?
Maybe. Those, I don't like those fast thinking situations. I mean, it's always fun because we have all our whole lives to like overthink about everything. So it's kind of nice to like every now and then be put in any kind of situation where you have to think fast and don't get emotionally attached to like what you chose. You just have to like do it and move on. And I don't know. There's something healthy about that.
That was quite a practice in patience and quick thinking and
definitely
getting it done.
Yeah, there's so much trust involved too. Like with Beck, I tell friends like we'd go on stage and like as the lights went out for us to walk on, there'd be like he'd make a request of like a different song that we never played or an arrangement that was different. Like while we're walking on stage, it's like, oh, I hope we all remember this, or I hope I know how to play that song. Like, so there's something about that I always was attracted to. Like, I love people like Neil Young or Dylan who like the only reason why they're still making art is because they're making it fresh for themselves and it's new and they're not falling into any like repetitive routine. And I think those are the people who are the most youthful and the most alive. So it's really cool to be around someone like Beck who's forcing you to make those decisions on the fly.
Yeah, that's really wild because, I mean, it's funny because I'm a high school teacher and
nice.
I tell my kids, I'm like, I'm really just winging it right now. Mm-hmm. Like
that's awesome.
I know what I'm doing.
That's so important to tell people.
But I'm just winging it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you say that. Like, I wish I had teachers or idols that I looked up to admit that. Like, even people who have their shit figured out, quote unquote, they definitely don't. They'll definitely tell you, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And you may have like certain like moments that feel like everything's like you've got control over everything, but that goes away. It's really important to know that, like, especially as a kid, like people don't have their shit figured out. It's okay to fail. It's okay to not know things,
Yeah. I mean, even just getting them to ask questions, it's like, it's that thing, right? It's like everyone's looking for perfection. And I'll ask them.
Oh, we have a guard dog.
Such a good girl.
Sorry.
It's okay.
The funny thing is when the door opens, she just like kisses whoever's there. She's the worst guard dog.
Oh my God. Yeah, my dog too. He'll like grab his ball. He's like, "You want to play?" And actually right now he has a donut around his neck because he like was aggravating his back and he was just like messing with it. And he took off from under the fence. He like ran out. And my concern was like, you have a donut around your head and a crop top because I put like a white t-shirt over his bandage. I'm like, why are you going out in public? But anyway, but like mistakes, right? So I'll tell them, I'll be like, so are you guys afraid to be wrong? Like I've actually asked them that question.
Do they admit that they are?
Some of them, yeah. They just look at me and they nod and they're like, yeah, I am.
That's awesome. That's such a cool conversation to have as like a high school teacher.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, you do know that most of the most accomplished people in the world were average. Most people are average. Did you know that? That's the definition of average.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm not trying to say you shouldn't try to be amazing and like get your straight A's and whatever, but like take it easy.
Yeah, totally. I think with anything, like when you put all your energy into like this one thing, it is tunnel vision and you're missing out on like making yourself a little more well-rounded by focusing on all these things on the sides, and yeah, that's really awesome that you say that.
So when did you start touring? Did you tour right away with Company of Thieves or did you do little stuff with other bands before that?
Yeah, my high school band went on to play a little bit like while we started getting into college. So we would travel a little bit to go play at different people's colleges and stuff like that. And I remember that being like one of the best times in life where you're in a vehicle and you're going somewhere else out of town to go play music for a bunch of like peers in a different college, and this dream of like, oh, maybe it's packed and there'll be a bunch of girls there, and maybe someone like really loves our band and like we could keep coming back and build a following. So that was really exciting. That was like my first taste of just traveling and playing in different cities, and I loved it. And then Company of Thieves, we kind of did like the local thing long enough to build up some kind of awareness to our band on a local level, like playing around the city in Chicago and suburbs. And then we started slowly spiraling out to like little weekend warrior shows, like, oh, let's play Indianapolis and then go to Madison and then come home. Or let's just drive to St. Louis on a Friday and play and come home Saturday. And started like building up little pockets of followings that have been fans even to this day. Like I remember when we did our reunion tour a few years ago, there's people that were at those shows that were at like our shows before we got signed and before we toured and just showed up at St. Louis or Indianapolis or New York or wherever. And I think just doing that enough created like some kind of attention that something was happening and it was the right place at the right time. And the band was, I don't know, like had some kind of energy happening where people were reacting positive to it. Yeah. Then we signed in like 2008 and we're touring like immediately for like basically like the rest of my life, I guess. But yeah, it started slow. Like it's like, it doesn't like make sense for any like band financially or any other reason to go. Like I know it's exciting, like people who haven't toured, they're always like, oh, we got a booking agent, we're just trying to get on tours. I'm like, well, that's probably not going to happen, because even bands on the radio with labels with booking agents, like that's still hard to get tours. You need a lot going on, and it doesn't make sense unless you have a record out and there's like push to go on a tour and spend so much money. So start out doing things that you could do on your own, like play locally a bunch and play the next city over and the next 2 cities over and just do small trips and keep trying to grow something.
So what was the dynamic of the band? Because you're basically running like a small business. So did everybody have different roles to play, and how did that work?
Yeah, I think everyone was always doing something, whether it's like driving the van or talking to your manager or writing songs or thinking about who's producing the next record. I mean, I think the band was always mostly like Genevieve and myself. We kind of started writing songs together and doing acoustic open mics, and the spirit of the band was always that energy between our dynamic. And we were very fortunate to be around so many great musicians over the years, like over whatever lineup changes we've had, like so many different personalities coming in and learning from, and so many different kind of musicians that we were learning from. And everyone, you know, whether our roles were different, like everyone was doing something and helping carrying the weight, and it just makes it so much easier instead of someone being lazy and just sitting around all day while 2 other people are like sweating every day.
Is there ever a point where you have to have a conversation like that, and how do you go about having that conversation?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, wow, it's so funny like talking about certain eras of my life, because it seems like a different life ago. Like that I've ever had to do any of this stuff. But yeah, I remember it getting awkward at times. And again, it's probably much different now if you're in your 30s versus like trying to have these conversations when you're like 21. And especially with males, I feel like our egos in our early 20s are so powerful and like it makes it really hard to communicate with each other. But yeah, I think if you go at it with like some kind of like sensitivity first, it's a lot harder for someone else to get defensive and be more open to whatever you're suggesting. And that would sometimes happen, and sometimes we do a bad job at not communicating, and we'd be really frustrated. And when we finally like expressed ourselves, it was terrible. And then the other person would get defensive, and then you would get nowhere. But I think, yeah, from what I remember, it was just like sitting down and being like, hey, you know, like we're busting our ass. Can you like help pull some of the weight or pick something up, or like, but I think it didn't happen too much. I feel like for the most part, people like did something to help carry the weight.
So once you have a team that's working with you and helping you sort that stuff out, do you not have to talk about it as much, or?
No, you have to talk about it more. I think, I mean, that's the dream. Like, oh, I just want to get this person so I don't have to do this. I think if that's your attitude, not to sound like harsh, but I don't think you're going to be one of the people that last. If you're someone who like really likes doing whatever it takes to carry on the dream, I feel like those people are the people that like are still around today doing it. Or else, it's just so fucking hard and exhausting in so many different ways that you can't just be like hoping that someone's going to do it for you. And then when you do, and it gets lost in the shuffle of all these people who aren't you and don't get you or what you're trying to do, and are putting most of their focus on whoever's making them the most money. So, I mean, that's probably not a good idea to not have more communication and like hound people and like, hey, did you do this thing we asked today? Like always following up with your management and your label. And Genevieve and I were always hounding our team, and for the most part, we had a lot of great, talented people working for us that we're so thankful for. And we've also had the experience of people who like, what are you doing? There's momentum here. Why are you not doing your side of it? And like, we can all win. And it's just exhausting having that fight all the time.
Yeah, and now with a lot of bands doing things more DIY and more like staying independent and things like that, you have to hustle yourself, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a benefit to staying independent?
I think so, especially today with how there's so many things you can do. The fact that you can record on your own on a laptop and put it on Spotify and the next week is like insane. I mean, think about if we knew that like 15 years ago, that would have made my head explode. But I think, because everyone could do that, now there's like this overpopulated mess of stuff that you're hoping people will eventually find whatever you just made. So my advice is always just do as much as you can on your own before it gets really complicated and expensive with other people. And to be honest with you, anyone that you think you want working for you is not going to want to work for you if you're not somebody yet, if that makes any sense. So that's why you really do have a lot that you can be doing on your own first. No big booking agent or label or manager is going to work with some band just because they're good and they have never played a show and they have no fans and nothing's going to happen. So you have a lot of work you can do. Right.
You can build your own product essentially before
totally.
Somebody else tries to sell it for you.
Yeah.
I have this idea.
For sure. And the thing about doing it on your own first is you do end up having more control of your career for the long term, because nowadays a song could luckily just end up on a Spotify playlist and a blog and blow up. But the second that that's not new anymore, which is probably going to be in like a month, like that's how fast songs are stopping talked about, then you have nothing. And those people Spotify streams don't equate to ticket sales at all. I've seen people have millions and millions of plays and they can't bring 30 people to a show on a tour. So I don't know. You can do it the lazy way and hope to get lucky and then maybe have overnight success for like a week, or you can just keep making music and keep getting it out to people and having realistic goals so that you can keep doing it. And I think that's where you'll have more control and sustainability.
What part do you think collaboration plays in today's music world?
In what sense? Like writing music or like collaborating as a team, getting it? Well,
collaborating as a team or with other artists in order to get the word out, in order to stay relevant. I know there's basically people have like squads, right? Where they help each other out.
I think it's like 100% important. It seems like very community based, where you're relying on people to be sharing things on social media, just like you would if you were handing out flyers as a street team member in like the 90s and like, come to this band show. It's really the same thing, which is kind of cool. It's like you get this sense of community and support from like people that become your family. But again, everyone's doing that, so it easily gets lost in the shuffle. So you really have to be doing something that stands out and something that's different, which I guess is cool in the sense that it motivates us to be better at what we're doing and thinking of new ways of doing things so that we can have more of an artful society to be living in, which is great.
Yeah, just like you can put anything out, but only the best stuff is going to rise to the top.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Yeah. So what's something about your lifestyle? Because even as a kid, you were traveling a lot, and now as an adult, you travel a lot.
Yeah.
So is there something about your lifestyle that you wish people who are really more, they're not, they're not your significant other and they're not like your parents, right? They're just, they're close to you, but they don't quite understand. What do you think you would want them to know about your lifestyle?
Oh, wow. No one's ever asked that before. That's a good question. I think one thing, maybe this is just because of a recent thoughts, but one thing that I struggle with friends of mine that I'm close to that are in the tier of people that are maybe like a step behind of of what I've achieved, I feel like it gets really difficult whenever I'm like struggling with something. It seems like it's not as important because, oh, he'll figure it out. Like he's doing well, or it looks like he's doing well. So Mark's fine. Or when I do accomplish something that I'm hoping my friends will also accomplish, it's not, I feel like people may think that it's just like luck. And I think the people that think that are the people that aren't, like I was saying earlier, they're not leaving their door with like some kind of positive faith in what they want and how it's going to work out, and going about their day with like love instead of like head down and mopey. And like, what are you bringing to like a room when you walk into a room with a certain attitude that's negative versus like someone who looks like they're just like full of love and light. And I think that people don't realize that it's very hard. It's like very important to be spiritual in that sense when things are unknown, instead of being like, oh God, nothing's working out. And I feel like my lifestyle is a constant battle of trying to remember that, and it's work. And I don't know, I wish people realized that if we focused on that, it would help a lot. It would open a lot of doors for people. And I think that's really big in my lifestyle, like, and how things work out for me. And I just want things to work out for everybody.
Are there any practices that you have every day that help keep you in this positive state of mind?
I really want to get into some kind of like everyday morning ritual, but every day is so different. I mean, it usually starts with me waking up, and I love the smell of making coffee and just having a cup of coffee with no sound and not looking at my phone yet, or just like having like, even if it's like 10 minutes to just like sit on my porch outside and let the sun hit me and just like let my brain wake up for a minute. I feel like that's something that's kind of consistent. And then I like to, before I get into any kind of work, I kind of like to, I'm a huge audio nerd, so I'm just always trying to like learn about other producers, like little tips on mix tricks and things like that. So I'll just try to like learn a new lesson of like watching videos or reading an interview with someone, and try to like pick up on something that I could use that day in a song that I'm working on. But that's not even every day, but that seems like most days though. And yeah, I guess, and exercise. I'm always trying to like, if it's not every day, it's definitely every other day that I try to do something, whether it's a quick run or I ride my bike. I love riding bikes. In my neighborhood, I'm in the hills, so it's like really gnarly, like, but it's the best 20-minute workout you can do. Like, it'll kick your ass completely in the best way. So just exercise, some kind of mental calmness, and trying to learn something before starting your day of working.
I love that. And yeah, the bike riding is insane. All I've ever done in LA as far as bike riding goes was in Manhattan Beach. But even just like getting from the beach to like,
oh, that's so fun,
a few blocks up was like so difficult.
Yeah, I need to do more of that. Like every time I'm on the bike, it's always like a punishing workout almost. But I miss just like in the Midwest where I grew up in like the suburbs of Roselle. I miss just like sunset bike rides with your friends, and you would just like ride. It would just be a flat surface and you would just cruise. And going on like Manhattan Beach like that, like I need to go out to the West Side and do that more often and just like cruise along the beach.
Yeah, just
like, have
cruise
a nice
the
ride.
Strand. It's really nice. So tell me about what you're working on now individually.
Yeah, I'm constantly trying to clear enough space to like really focus on finding a way to present songs that I'm writing, like sonically. Like I've always just been obsessed with production and like how to present a song and how much more impactful it could be if it's done in an intriguing way. And I like interesting recordings, so I'm just trying to always find ways to make guitars sound fresh and make drums sound cool, and the way I record my voice and all of that. So I think I just really want to find what sound suits what I'm doing and is a good way of like bridging the gap between all these different kinds of music that I like and having it all somehow bleed into one thing. So I'm going to be focusing a little bit on that like in between other work, and continuing to just write songs and hopefully just start releasing like even like a single or two, and then working towards like an EP or some kind of larger batch of work. But yeah, that's probably like my favorite thing I do. which I'm not doing enough right now because I'm so busy. But I also love like writing with other people and helping people who have a song like find a way to bring it to life, to make sure that it's like the most touching and moving thing that a listener could experience. That's like so fun for me. Like if someone has a song that's really great and it barely needs any like work with the arrangement, and it's all about just like, oh, let's record it like this, like that would be cool. Like I just like quickly get inspired when I hear a rough demo from somebody. So I just love working on other people's songs and helping them maintain their vision.
Is production something that you're interested in?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's like the one thing I've always, like, even back with Company of Thieves stuff, I was always so adamant about certain like ways we would record the drums or the guitars, and just based on records that we as a band all shared and liked, and just trying to find ways to like try those techniques and get those sounds. And that's just keeps growing, like that love of just like sounds and how you can impact a listener, you know, and yourself. Like I just like recordings that are interesting and different instead of just a band playing in a room. I'd rather save that for a live show.
Are you going to consider opening a studio at any point?
I'd love to. I mean, I have a pretty nice home setup with way too much stuff. It's like, it's always expanding and growing. Like, I feel like every time I come home from a tour, it's like 3 new guitars and a new microphone and a new preamp. There's just like, you find deals while you're traveling, like from Craigslist, and it's just hard to say no to, and you could always sell it. So whatever. But yeah, I would love like a bigger, whenever I own a house, it'd be nice if it was like attached or had another house in the back, like a small house to make a studio, or even go somewhere else. Just that costs so much money to rent another space in LA.
Yeah. What's the coolest thing you've ever, or some of the coolest things that you've ever found?
I think I was in St. Louis one time, and I was just like browsing Craigslist, seeing like just randomly if anything popped out. And this one guy had like pictures of me and the drummer from AWOLNATION, Isaac Carpenter. Like we like a lot of similar guitar stuff, like amps and like old Silvertone and harmony kind of stuff from the 60s. And this guy had like the coolest 12 strings and acoustic guitars and Silvertone amps. And like, we're like, we got to just show up to this guy's house right now. And like, so we got an Uber, and I got, is it the 1482 amp? It's like the little 12 watt Silvertone amp. That's like the Tweed Deluxe version for Silvertone, and the Chris Isaak hollow body Silvertone. And he gave me both of them for like, I think it was like $300. And like the guitar alone is usually like $1,200. I don't know what, I think his wife was like making him get rid of a lot of stuff. So,
oh no.
yeah. But we gave him tickets to the show that night. So hopefully that made him feel better too.
That's
but yeah,
so cool.
I scored big time.
That's so fun. And you always wonder, well, I've wondered because I've gone to pick up things from people, and they'll tell you these amazing stories. They'll be like, oh yeah, you know, I actually toured with these people, and then they're like selling their stuff. But I guess it's nice because it's going to get used. So.
Yeah. And I feel like if you really don't want to sell it and you really need it, you won't. So maybe it's a good thing that someone's selling something when they do. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So we are almost out of time. I'd love to talk to you forever, but
yeah, this is fun.
You've already said, you know, staying open and leading with positivity and like making moves are really important so you don't get stagnant. But is there anything as far as wellness or like with relationships and things that you think will help a lot that you would like to give as advice?
Something that might be helpful. Like, I feel like this comes up a lot. Like, I have this feeling when I'm watching a lot of younger artists trying to make it, whatever that means. It seems like this thing I keep coming back to thinking or saying to certain people is there's already enough great like movie directors and songwriters, and we don't necessarily need more. So if you want to step up and add yourself to this pool, like, I just hope and I ask that it's people who like are doing it because they literally can't not do it, and they need to do it. And then when you hear someone like a Ray Charles sing, or like a Stevie Wonder, like those are good examples of like, wow, when they sing, it sounds like they need to fucking sing. And I think our world needs more people on every art medium like that, because I think we're like tolerating a lot of mediocrity right now in our culture, which is a really strange time. So I think the biggest thing is like having realistic goals. It's like not about playing a certain venue or touring or being signed to a record label or being a rock star. It's not about like the people who are those things, who are rock stars and who are iconic legends. It's because they just wanted to write killer fucking songs and kill it live. That's the goal, you know? And if it's anything other than that, just please get out of the way. There's so much competition as it is. And that sounds mean, but I think it's helpful advice, because when you start going at things for those reasons, you get caught up somewhere along the way where you're going to feel very empty inside and not fulfilled, because you're not actually nurturing the thing that's important, which is being your best self, you know? And I don't know. I think we just need more of that.
Yeah, and definitely things flow more easily when you're doing what you love.
Totally.
And if you ask yourself, you know, am I really enjoying this? Am I doing this because I love it? Do I need this in order to live and breathe?
Yeah.
And if you don't, then, you know, you will find yourself at a crisis at some point and you will have wasted.
Sure. When you do accomplish some of those goals, you realize, oh, nothing's different. This isn't that big. Like, it's so funny. Like, when being a kid from Chicago, our goal was always just to play the Metro. We didn't really have a goal after that. I didn't really think much farther past that. And then you play and you're like, oh, that was cool. Yeah, it felt like another show. And then like you want to get signed and you think you're going to be like Nirvana, and you get signed and you're like, oh, this is cool, but I guess we didn't really think about what to do after that. We got to like keep going. And even like venues that I've played or like bands I've played with, it's like, it's never this big thing that you think it's going to be. And I was telling a friend, like, I mean, I've played with the Rolling Stones at football stadiums, and it's not any more fun than playing like the church basement where your high school band came in and set up the PA and all your friends came out and it was packed. Those are things that like still are at my like height of memories that are like, that was fucking fun. So I don't know. And not to say like those big shows aren't awesome too, but it's not better. It's just different. It's like a different way of doing it and a different kind of fun.
Yeah, it's like loving the experience, loving what you're doing versus just reaching another milestone or like hitting another target. Yeah,
because if you do love it, you're doing it. Who cares where you're doing it? Like
exactly. Yeah, awesome. Wow, that was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Tour Life. Please remember to rate and review the show on Apple and Spotify to help us elevate these important conversations. Join our community and get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content. And you'll also be the first to hear about upcoming events and giveaways by connecting with us on socials at The Tour Life Podcast and at Q101 Chicago.
Are you into weird, spooky, and strange history? Horrifying History tells you about the side of history that people don't normally talk about. We tell the tales of haunted places, infamous true crimes, unsolved mysteries, the paranormal, and then we look to history to see where the truth actually lies. Want to get spooky with us?
Horrifying History, part of the Believe Network. Just search BLEAV on YouTube or wherever you listen.